Namaskar, dear learners, welcome to the lecture on ethical perspectives of mass media research. I am Dr. Krishna Shankar Kusuma, Associate Professor, AJK Mass Communication Research Center, Jamia Millia Islamia. You have been introduced to various research methods, tools and techniques, and you will be doing your dissertations and theses and writing research papers, but it is important when you are conducting research or applying research tools, gathering the data, it is important to take utmost care for keeping the ethical standards and ethical concerns of the participants in nature. Or here you see, either it is participants or even the secondary data, which are records, films, magazines or television episodes. It is important to keep certain ethical parameters. You should follow the either institutional, that means your university or a college, whichever is providing the ethical parameters that you should follow, or you should follow the general ethical principles that are required for a researchers to conduct and gather the data. In media research especially, we deal with the recording of videos, taking the photographs, sometimes we analyze the photographs, sometimes we analyze the visual material, and we do conduct interviews and write reports. And here it is important, the first and foremost comes, if you are doing a field work, the participants' rights. What are the participants' rights? Have we taken the consent of the participants? Sometimes the participants or maybe ethical audit. Ethical audit is also very, very important. That means, if you are going to the field, okay, you have done the research, or maybe you have taken the consent, or maybe you are going to conduct the research, it is important that not belong to your university or maybe you yourself or your friends, but a third person, maybe an organization which is working in the same field, or maybe a recognized ethical audit team from your own university, they should come and see. When you are dealing with humans, when you are dealing with animals, it is important for you to whether you are following certain ethical standards or not. The ethical audit report, now it is becoming very, very important before you submit your dissertations and theses. So, here participants' consent is very, very important, and also once you have written the first draft of your research, it is important to bring to them whether you have put it their responses in the right perspective or not. That is very important, because later on they should not find in an awkward position that they have been misrepresented, or though their quotes are interpreted in a wrong way, and that is why consent is important, and ethical audit is a very, very important thing. Sometimes we deal, for example, in health communication, you are doing a research on AIDS, or you are doing a, for example, on COVID situation. So, what is happening is the confidentiality is very, very important. So, you need to see what is the sensitive information which may hurt the sentiments or maybe the social status of the participants is very, very important. And sometimes we may use intentionally, for example, X participants say and Y participants say, sometimes we may not use the exact ages, exact names or gender. That is also sometimes very, very important. Keeping the sensitivity of the information, you need to see what amount of personal information can be published as a report and what is not, that you must be take into consideration. Of course, if there is an ethical audit, you will be doing it for your research, it will be you will be able to do it much better. And sometimes what happens, there are conflict of interest, sometimes there are subjudicial matters, sometimes you are trying to do it for your own research purpose, but that research may not conflict the existing the governmental or non-governmental or maybe the community interests of the locality. That is very, very important, that you should see that the conflict of interest should not be occur when you are doing the research or even publishing the research. And here you need to, even when you are doing a survey, you are distributing a questionnaire either by personally, I mean to self administered questionnaire, or through using a technological tools like Google Docs or SurveyMonkey or any other platforms, or through email or WhatsApp. It is important to tell in the beginning who are you. I mean to say that this research is done by me and this is for the academic purpose, non-profit purpose. How you are going to use the findings of the research, that should be clearly stated. And even sometimes you see in the questionnaire, when you are designing, you may ask the some of the sensitive issues. Sometimes you may ask the name, sometimes you may ask the sex, you may ask the income. These are also important for your research, but not every topic requires them, and every topic I do not suggest that everybody is happy to reveal their personal information. So, that is also very important, that you need to identify, this is my institute, this is the research topic, and this is the purpose of doing the research, whether it is academic or corporate, or the who is the ultimate beneficiary from the research, that need to be explained. Here next is important that data manipulation. Data manipulation is important to look at, that no data should be manipulated by increasing your sample, or maybe adding some responses which are not actually collected from the field, or maybe changing the numbers to get the desired output. So, that is not actually the right thing to do. Ethically, you should not play with the data. Sometimes we may imagine, we may start our research not checking the actual field, and once you go there, you may find a less respondents, or maybe you may find almost no data. Then you started, it is something like cooking the data is actually not advisable, and it is a clearly unethical process. In the recent case, if you see the television audience ratings in India, that by a television channel, they say that people's meters which are installed in the television sets, they have been asked to watch particular channel again and again, and there are a lot of other manipulations which has taken place. That gives even a single person, or maybe even 10% of the population, you are changing the data, that the output will change. So, here data manipulation is clearly an unethical practice, that whether it is a data of 50 people, a data of 500 or 5 lakh people, it is very, very important that you should present as accurate as possible is there. Sometimes the sampling error might take place, that is a part of the study. You will be declaring this is the error in my study, but data manipulation is a quite unethical process. And here if you look at further in how unethical practices knowingly or unknowingly take place in media content. Say here there is a plagiarism is one thing which I will be discussing later in the lecture. Copyright issues are another thing. Opposite to copyright, what is there? Creative Commons. So, here we need to see copyright material, whether we are dealing with the copyright material or a part of the Creative Commons, or something we are plagiarizing. So, when we are collecting the material, it is important to see that the material that we are collecting, if it is under Creative Commons. What is Creative Commons? Before you submit any photograph or a video or any other material, maybe a design, okay, then what happens? You will be telling whoever is you are granting permission, are you going to give it for reuse and remix? Are you going to use it? You can use, but give the attribution, give the author's name, credit, or are you going to give you download it, use it, but you also upload similar material. So, there are different nitty-gritties are there in Creative Commons, even if you are using the material either it is a picture or it is a vector graphic or a design or even a video clip. So, because sometimes we are also doing collecting a lot of audiovisual material for our study. And another thing is that the copyrighted material, sometimes when we are doing a film analysis, we are doing a content analysis or maybe semiotic analysis of the representation of women in advertisements or films. Then what happens? You take the screen grabs, you also take the models from the different other researchers. So, here sometimes the clippings are screen grabs. So, you need to take the proper permission from the filmmaker, and depending you must see what the filmmakers, even if you simply write a letter to the filmmaker or a producer, that will be much advisable. And according, see, the last very important is plagiarism. Plagiarism is one of the important issue in academic research, be it mass media or communication research, be it sociology or political science, any academic research. Plagiarism is one of the important thing, and it happens because according to MLA style guide, many times students do plagiarism in their academic research because they are unaware of rules and regulations or the practices of ethical standards that they are not knowing. That is why sometimes unknowingly plagiarism happens, but sometimes knowingly also happens. So, according to the Merriam-Webster online dictionary, the plagiarize means to steal and pass off the ideas or words of another as one's own. That means to use another production without crediting the source. So, sometimes there is a literary theft, sometimes to present as new and original an idea which is already there, and sometimes it can be an idea, it can be a design, it can be a design, or it can be maybe a picture or a vector graphic, or maybe a film. So, here the plagiarism is not just only exact replica of the words which are there in some other text, but also ideas. That means, if I check plagiarism report in a software, that will only give similarity. That means, they are similarity softwares. They will check the same written language, same words are there earlier existed in some other text in some other part of the world. So, but it will not tell you if you have changed the language and you have presented the idea and without giving a credit. So, that is an unethical practice. Even the software may not find, but ethically it is wrong when anybody, your supervisor or maybe any other reader who reads it, if they understand this idea is not by the author who has written, it is already published, expressed in a different language earlier published than this, then you will be liable for the punishment. And here let us understand the copying versus borrowing. Many times we whatever I talked about is a copying, but what is borrowing? Sometimes appropriating someone else's idea, for example, in an explanation, a theory, a model, or a conclusion, a hypothesis, a metaphor, a term sometimes, in whole or in part, or with superficial modifications without giving credit to its the real author. That is what Roy M. in 2003 defines. So, he says that you are giving even one single word you are taking. For example, Daniel Lerner's concept of empathy in development communication, we are using it, but when you are using empathy in its own sense, then you need to empathy and you give a citation, that is called in-text citation. Empathy, if you are following American Psychological Association style guide, APA style guide, empathy bracket Lerner Daniel comma 1947, whichever the year, that will be mentioned. So, here in the APA style you have to give the in-text citation or any other style, in-text citation of whether you are exactly quoting the source, whether you are rewriting in your own language and you are giving the credit of the original author must be there as in-text citation in a short form of reference. In-text citation means, and what is the full form of reference, where it is published, when it is published, which edition it is, which year it is, which page number it is, that you will be giving at the end of your academic writing, whether it is a paper, dissertation or a thesis. So, here let me also tell you, certain universities they accept, they say that less than 10% should be the plagiarism. Why they are accepting less than 10%? Sometimes the softwares, let me introduce you the softwares here. There are different softwares are there, and their softwares have limitations. Sometimes there are some errors are there, where sometimes your university is so popular and that is also showing 0.1% similarity. So, then what happens, that to keep to remove that, they said that up to less than 10% or even minimum 5% some universities, it differs from university to university. So, you have different variation among different universities. Initially some places they are 25, later on become 16, and now the University Grants Commission has brought into less than 10%, and my advice is that if you keep it less than 5%, it is good. In the sense, I am talking about only the similarity. You are checking your documents, once your research is done, you are checking the report in the softwares. What are these softwares? Turnitin, which is now one of the most popular software. Authenticate is another software, and the Government of India, MHRD, is provided every university, every teacher with a software called Urkundu. This Urkundu is also similarity check and software, and also we have Blackboard, Canva. There are many other softwares, but these are all paid softwares, but there are free softwares which are available, but I suggest you not to check in the free softwares, because sometimes there is something called institutional repository. That means, if when we are checking it, when it is reposited in the institution, then when you check it again, it will show that you have plagiarized yourself. So, that is why you must be very careful when you are checking your hard earned very well thought of your research, very hard inputs that you are putting it, that research should not go waste like this. UGC has brought in different penalties for committing academic dishonesty, that means plagiarism, or we can say similarity. Similarity is not plagiarism. I mean to say that plagiarism includes more than similarity, along with similarity. So, here less than 10% is minor or a smaller references you may find, and there is no penalty, but if it is more than 10% to 40%, then what happens is you will be asked to resubmit, and you need to withdraw the document, and if it is 40 to 60%, again you will not be allowed to submit the document. And of course, if it is more than 60%, and you need to repeat the course sometimes, and you need to redo the entire process, that's very strict guidelines are given. And my suggestion to you all is citing of the sources is very important. When you have done your research, you need to see whether it is a screen grab, whether it is a photograph, whether it is any other design or a quote or from or a model that you are using, maybe in the review of literature. So, you need to see whether that particular section is you have written, or it is from anybody other scholar has written, or the photograph which is taken, if it is from other archives, have you taken the written permission? Even it is from through email, that is very important to have a kind of an evidence. And citation and acknowledgement is very important. And sometimes what happens, inappropriate paraphrasing. Some of the academic writing, what happens, you have taken a paragraph from different thing, in the inappropriate paraphrasing you are changing the language. What happens, the inappropriate paraphrasing may, and it will show the first few lines are okay, then the next 2 words are written, and again the other 2 words are again it is showing. So, in the paragraph of 150 words, and 50 words are showing identified in color coded similarity, then this is also plagiarized. Sometimes it is also called mosaic plagiarism. And so it is very difficult to quote the internet web sources. Now for example, you have Microsoft Word, as well as you see the Google Doc, or even software citation engines like Mendeley or EndNote. They are all integrated to your web. Then what they are doing it, that they allow you to take the entire URL, and when you have accessed this and what is the time of access you need to give. So, there is another thing which is very important, which is also unethical in the media research, is that self plagiarism. That means you have already written a paper, you have already published somewhere, and now you are writing a new paper, you are quoting or over quoting. That means you are taking a large chunks from the old research and presenting. You are giving reference also, no problem, you have given reference also, but still you cannot over quote your research. Maybe you can take a gist of the paper, maybe you can give a 1 or 2 important quotes, but you cannot over quote your own research already published. That amounts to the self plagiarism, is also an unethical practice which is not acceptable. And you see for the audiovisual material, you have photographs, videos, and animation and graphical material which you will be using for various purposes. Say for example, you are making audiovisual lectures. Now, you say e-learning is also very important current days. For making the e-learnings, maybe background pictures you are taking, maybe a small animation you are taking, but everything you need to follow the, whether it is, you cannot search Google for downloading the material. So, if your lecture may be very good in the e-learning platform, but background material is copyrighted, then what happens? It will be easily caught by different plagiarism check softwares, and even the people can really point out, even the title credit music if you are taking, or relevant pictures you are taking, you must always look for the say websites like Pixabay or Pixels or FreePic. There are many, even Wikimedia Commons you search, and accordingly if it is a copyright free and what kind of Creative Commons attribution that you need to give, basing on that you give, then you can always quote and give the credit in the document, that is allowed. And sometimes what happens, you will be writing the paper by over quoting from a single source. That means you liked a very interesting book, in the same topic you are also writing, but you are quoting first chapter you have quoted already 2-3 times, second chapter you have quoted 2-3 times, fourth chapter you have quoted. See here, from one single chapter you cannot quote more than 10%. Sometimes, so it differs from different universities and different organizations, IEE, IIIE, they have a different set of standards. And here use quotes. If you are using quotes, that means it is not yours, then you have to give credit, and cite the original source as much as possible. And here any claim or any statement which is not yours cited, please cite them. And also sometimes you can always read it, understand it, write in your own language to avoid the similarity, and also you write your opinion and you give the citation. You give the citation, that is in text citations you need to give. Then your analysis should also be there when you are writing these things, and you need to, even if you take author's ideas, you need to, because who published first is always very important, and you need to structure without using the exact verbatim unless until it is very required for writing this. And of course, getting awareness about copyright law, fair usage like Creative Commons, and acquiring permissions of using the models, diagrams, maps, even Google. If you go Google Maps, you say, they say that this much of duration the maps can be used, this maps can be used. So, this you need to pay. So, you need to know the limitations of using them. And my advice of using software, because now whenever you send papers or dissertations to any journals or even submit your universities, they are in the public domain. It is a prestige of the university that no plagiarism should be found, and whatever the, because Government of India has given the Orkundu software, even other facilities are given. You need to visit your library and find out what is a suitable source where you can check your plagiarism and similarity, and plagiarism can also be checked by your concerned teacher, because whether some ideas are there which you have not quoted, then they that please do quote, give reference to it. So, that way you can enrich your text and get the benefit of doing an ethical research, especially when we are doing research on with audiovisual material, and also the other academic, when we are using a theoretical concept, when you are using the conceptual understanding, bringing in the review of literature, it is very important. So, I am sure you will be taking these positive steps involving the university's ethical committee before you actually, whether you apply for a project, whether you actually go to the field work, you also try to do the ethical audit, so that your research will be accepted more widely and you will get the benefit of the research. I am sure you have enjoyed this lecture and benefited. Thank you very much, and see you in the next lecture.